Welcome back to another episode of Camp Time is Real Time. I'm your host, Sarah Lebrecq, and we are back from hiatus. I didn't even know we were going on hiatus, but we did, and more importantly, we're back. You guys, it's June 6th. We are about a month out from camp. We're ramping up again. I'm very, very excited. And I figured the only way we really could kick things off again properly was to get another Cowell. Today, it's Susan Cowell. This is the person who you've seen everywhere. She worked at camp for 1 year on campus, but really was behind the scenes doing so much and crucially bringing us a staple counselor competition. We talked about everything in this one, about, what it's like in the off season, how the camp persona has developed and how we were recruiting all of those kids from Medfield. It was great. This is an excellent episode, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Hey, let's get into the housekeeping real quick. Come on the pod. You will like it. I think everyone wants to hear from you. So just, give us a follow at camptime_realtime on Instagram. We're also on TikTok, camptime_realtime. Shoot me an email if you know how to do that, camptimefcdc@gmail.com. I definitely want you to come on the pod, or you and your camp friends. Wouldn't that be fun to talk about? I think we should do it. We're ramping back up for the summer. Those camp feelings, those camp juices are starting to flow. I know you want to talk about it. So give me a call, give me a text, shoot me an email. Let's do this. But for today, please enjoy this conversation with Susan Cowell. It was a lot of fun, and we will see you next time. Bye.
We pretty much talked about camp all year. Not every day all year, but it was definitely, a main topic of conversation throughout the year. We would talk just like you guys do about, skit ideas and weekly theme ideas, and when Michael was here, video ideas, and t-shirt colors and designs and all the things that go into the running of the camp day. Competitions, mostly competitions, probably, because that's the part that Tom would, be the one to come up with. But, things like that. So,
yeah.
So that was all. And then once camp started, but I mean, from year to year, it varied depending on who was where. Like when it was just Sam and Jesse and we were just married, my job was basically running things over to camp. Sam forgot his comb, Jesse doesn't have a towel, somebody doesn't have lunch, Tom needs me to go to the store and get stuff like this. So I was just a runner.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to do that. I wasn't working at camp or anything like that. But then once the kids started going, so Jack, once the kids started going, I would go over and visit camp because I wanted to see them engaging with it, right? Just like you'd love to see your kids engaging. And of course, there were no other parents doing that, right? I went to every show and every video, and I saw all your videos, sat in the back, and I just felt like I got a really privileged view because I got to see the inside of camp from the counselor perspective without being a counselor. So I wasn't really inside, right? But I knew what led to all those things, what preceded them.
Yeah.
So I'd say the biggest things that I was, a part of was the t-shirts, figuring out the t-shirts. That was with Tom. I mean, that wasn't me. That was Tom's thing. But I was just, I had a vote.
Yeah.
I voted an opinion.
Sure. So I remember that first t-shirt, those orange ones. Had that been like stirring around a little bit? Like we should do something, or like do you remember how those came to be?
Yeah. So there's a counselor that had worked at camp who was in the business, Lisa, and she did the first couple of years. Okay. So when we were first married, or maybe not even married, and then our first year of marriage, she did the t-shirts that year. Okay. She created the logo. I mean, she took Gail and Sue's logo and created a silk screen for it and started making shirts. There had been one shirt. It was had the green ring around the arms and then the ring around the two sides. And it had been up in the stable. Mm-hmm. It was up on the wall. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was in the stable. It might have been somewhere else at the time, but I think.
Yeah, maybe in the barn. One of them.
Maybe in the barn.
Yeah.
Maybe it was in the barn.
Yeah.
And I remember, we were getting t-shirts for our teams,
Yeah.
the basketball team and the soccer team, we were all getting, that was all just starting. Nobody had practice t-shirts then.
Right.
Or before then, that was a new thing. And I said, I don't know whose idea it was at first, but together in conversation, we were like, we should get t-shirts for camp, for the campers.
Yeah.
So there had been this one before. So we didn't have the very first one, but so she did it for a couple of years. And then the guy that Craig Larson, who Tom had getting all his gear at school, started doing it.
I have like a very distinct memory of the unveiling of the first one. I think it was like a Shawnee or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. I was like, something I can wear about camp, like in the off season. It was like an absolute no brainer. and then like I maintain, I'm like, you like in general, like you put FCDC on pretty much anything, like it's gonna fly off the shelves. Do you recall the year that they were green, like the Kelly green that the camp was, and they said camper on the back?
Yeah. No, I don't. No, you'll remember that year better than anyone. I do remember the fiasco around that. That was actually Tom's idea, although I thought it was a good one. I did think it was a good idea. I was fully behind it. No, I was there that morning when you all revealed your staff
shirts.
Yeah. So
yeah, a microcosm of boy, did we think that we could do whatever we wanted.
I mean, I was not a camp kid growing up, so I didn't have the feel. I didn't know like what that meant. I went 1 year to a camp. We met at school, right? So my first year, I was right out of college. I got a job in Medfield teaching at the high school, phys ed.
Sure.
And he was at the elementary school teaching phys ed. And so we met at the staff meeting on the very first day. Actually, before we met in school, we went at double sessions, actually. I was coaching field hockey and he was coaching soccer. Yep. So the head field hockey coach brought me around to introduce me to all the other coaches during doubles. And she brought me over to the Wheelock fields, and Tom and Bill were there. I don't know if you know Bill Pope, but he worked at camp also. He ran the theater, and I think he did another area as well. And so we met right there, and a kind of a sweet little spot that now will go public for the very first time that I think only Michael knows. I think Michael's the only person we've ever told. Tom doesn't know I'm saying this.
Oh no.
But so that was in 1984.
Okay.
When we met, August of 84. And we, to this day, still mark the spot where we first met.
Oh, that's adorable.
Like you could see it if you were there. And we've never told anyone. We just go every year and do it again. And
that's awesome.
It's pretty neat. Yeah, the spot where we met. So
that's pretty
cool. Romantic. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we met that day, and then we were colleagues. And we coached basketball together. And I kind of fell for the boys, to be honest. Jesse was like 11, I think, and Sam was 7. And they were just, he was a single dad, and he had those boys with him everywhere. And I got to know them, and I just loved their relationship together. So I fell in love with all of them. You know what I mean? It wasn't like Tom, and he's got 2 boys. Like it was a package. And and so I knew about camp. And I knew that then they were talking a lot about camp, but I wasn't understanding really like what we know of, right? So I had a summer job already. It was my 3rd year. I was going back to Virginia to work for the National Park Service, and I had to leave him. And we were both devastated that I was leaving. So one of the things that we did to like let the other one know we were thinking about them was to call them on the phone. Now, there were no cell phones. You couldn't text and go, thinking of you, right?
Right.
Is we would call the other one, let it ring one time and hang up. So I would call camp, and he shared the office with Rose, right? And Gail was always there, and Sue. Oh no. And you could hear the phone ring, right, at camp out loud. So the phone would ring one time and then disconnect. And after a while, people started to notice, like, why is the phone? They just assumed it was
getting
kind of prank call or something. But we would both, try to. I don't know what it is. So I'm sure he never told them. I'm sure he never told them it was me. Gosh. But a funny thing that happened, and it was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. Is we would send each other, as people do, love letters and cards and things like that. But sometimes we would send them to work. So I sent one to camp. I hadn't even met Gail yet.
Right. Oh, God.
And I didn't know she opened his mail.
Oh, jeez.
So I found out when the next time we talked on the phone, he's like, yeah, Gail brought me your card. It was really nice. And she just opened all the mail and would bring Tom whatever he needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. So first time I mailed to 1221 Pond Street. It got read by Gail first. So
perfect. The way it should
I don't
be.
remember what I wrote, and I'm sure it was fine, but that was our introduction to one another.
Yeah. How long after you kind of got immersed into the camp, everything, were you actively recruiting kids from Medfield to work there?
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah. Every year, every time we had somebody, and we taught together at that point. Tom came up to the high school.
Oh, okay.
So we were co-teaching.
Oh my gosh.
At the high school. And so we could collaborate on that totally. We just look across the gym and we talk about kids like, so-and-so would be really great at camp. So we were, full time. That was full time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a testament. You look back in time at who the counselors have been, particularly coming out of Medfield, where it's like, where you guys you're their teachers, you know them very well. And, and this has kind of been like in the whole podcast, just kind of digging into like, what is the secret sauce, right? But like,
sure.
but you were there to kind of help build it, right? To be like, this is the type of person that we need at camp. And I think it's
absolutely.
I think it's really cool that it just there's no like handbook on it or like what would be good, but like these like good kids.
I mean, someone who's fun to be with, who's responsible, helps others, someone who's helpful, kind, and fun.
Right.
They could be a top student and super straight arrow, but not the top credentials. We're looking for people who we think would add value, add fun to camp.
Right.
So that's pretty easy to see, right? You can see it. I'm sure growing up, you had friends who are like, oh, this friend would be really good at camp.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a feeling you get.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And I have actively tried to recruit some of those friends. I can't remember when, but I remember there was a summer perhaps that you like subbed in for maybe a junior camp counselor, like way back.
Bonnie had to go to a wedding or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And so it was like for a week.
A week. Yep.
Yeah. Was that your first time? Like
that was my first time. Yeah. I did another sub, and we were trying to think of who I subbed for, and it wasn't for a whole week, so I don't remember. I did it a few times. That was before they had the counselors.
Oh, the floaters.
Floater, thank you. Is before they had floaters. They would need someone to sub for a head counselor, so that's what I did.
Okay.
But then once they had an assistant who they really wanted to give a head job to, but there wasn't a head job for them.
Yeah.
They were able to give them that. Yeah. And that ended up being such a great model.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody who definitely deserves to be ahead, but there just isn't anything right now. You'd be next, next in line.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of Jack as a baby, one of the things that was so sweet, he was born August 28th. So I was very, very pregnant at the end of summer. And the staff threw a surprise baby shower for us down in the stable, which was so much fun. And I still have the raccoons and, some of the cute FCDC baby clothes. I have to go up and pull them out. I saved them.
You did work a full summer on campus 2017?
2017.
Okay.
2017. Yeah.
And this was a big year because why?
Well, it was a big year because Tom and I knew that it was going to be his last summer. And so, so we wanted to do something really special. We wanted to share in it together. And even though I'd been at camp all those years, I'd never actually done that.
Yeah.
And he needed an arts and crafts counselor. And I was like, I'm not artistic nor crafty.
Yep.
But we went up to PEI for family vacation between school and camp. And I just went and raided the arts and crafts barn and went through stuff and went through everything with Sue. And I'm like, what can I take in practice? So I learned how to make friendship bracelets, and I brought GIMP, and I brought all sorts of stuff up there. And Annika and Sarah helped me, and we, I learned how to do, and he gave me really great assistants.
Yeah.
Very strong assistants who grew up at camp, who knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
And I was the adult in the room, I did all the planning and preparation, but they were the ones to say how you put the cutouts of the bear together to make it look like a bear.
Sure. Yeah.
Because to me, it's just a whole bunch of circles.
Right. Yeah. Got 3 brown.
But it was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I loved it. And honestly, it made me wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
It did. It made me wish I'd done it sooner. And I remember thinking like, hey, if this happens again, like I would do it.
Did you have a tribe at Arts and Crafts or no?
I didn't. I wish I had, just for the fun of doing that, but I understand why they didn't have a tribe.
Yeah.
Because and I ran Upper Playground.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did. Yeah, I ran Upper Playground. So I would have liked to have done it, but that was fun too, because you get to hang out and play with all the kids, and there's something to that was really fun too.
Yeah, we said so. So Upper Playground is new as of like when I worked there 20 years ago. What a great idea! What a great idea for there to be 2 playground options, one like more chill and one dodgeball, right? Or so my son, who's like super athletic, his first choice is always lower play. When it was 150 degrees every day this summer, sometimes they didn't have it. And he was like, no, I still like it. Like, I like upper play. They like to vacuum the rug.
I loved vacuuming the rug.
Like,
everybody loved vacuuming.
Like the number one.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that just, it like keeps evolving, like the evolution of camp. Like, okay, like we need to have a place for kids who don't want to swim. We'll put them, they go to games. And then, oh, wait, they might not want to do that. Like, all of these things just like making it better and better. So it's just
no, I think it added a nice dimension. There'd be kids that would run to go get those games, and it was good for them to have some downtime. I don't know, I think it was just the relationship with the kids. I never knew the campers. I only, and so that was really neat. And I had kids of some of my students in camp, and that was neat.
Oh, that's great. Well, look, I mean, it's never too late to go back.
Never too late.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So I think Carrie told me this. So only you and Tom knew it was going to be his last year, right?
Nobody else knew. I mean, he and Sam had been, and Gail knew, obviously, that at some point, Sue and Bill and Sam would be the ones, but it wasn't planned out specifically. It was just kind of this assumption. It wasn't anything that was like written out or spoken as if it's happening. It was just, Sam was a natural. And we're just incredibly proud of him. He is just absolutely no surprise, but he is just blown the doors off of it, and he's just amazing. He's an amazing person, and we're incredibly proud of him. And Carrie too, for what she's contributed to camp. She's just, we love her so much, and she's just so terrific, and really helps him a lot, So we knew that, the time would come where Tom would be ready to give it up. We didn't know when it was going to be until like 2015. We started to talk about like, do you want to make 16 your last year? We definitely didn't want anyone to know, because we didn't want it to be a big thing that it's like Tom's last year. We didn't want to distract from camp itself. So even Sam and Carrie didn't know that. Sam might have had a guess or an inclination, but it was never ever discussed. So I'm sure we told them first.
You had 3 of the 4 boys working there, right?
At that point, just Sam and Michael, but Carrie worked
Oh,
that summer.
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
Jack
yeah.
was already out
Jack
of
was out.
college and had like a real job and,
Sure.
where he didn't have a summer spree.
Yep.
So, so Carrie was there. She did ceramics that year, which
Okay.
was great.
Yeah.
So it was Tom and Carrie and Michael and I and Sam. Super proud of the work Michael's done at camp too.
Yeah.
He was so creative with video, and he's really enjoying games.
Hmm.
But I was in awe, really in awe of what he and his partners all came up with.
Yeah.
All of them. He worked great with Kyle, great with Jess, great with Lauren. I mean, everybody was just they he just I was so impressed. I was so proud of him, and I couldn't wait to get to the video every week,
Yep. Yeah.
and greet him with a hug at the end. He's his best self too at camp, right? We're all our best self at camp. So,
100%.
Yeah.
I remember stopping in one day when he was in video. It was a Friday, and it must have been like right after he started teaching, but he was like, God, I forget the name of the character or whatever, but it was like explaining physics to children, and it was like the kids were swinging, and it was like a real lesson, and I was like in the back going, well, I've learned something. This is amazing. And I remember just
Yeah.
being totally blown away. I was like, this
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah. He's a
Yeah.
wonderful teacher. He's a really wonderful teacher.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And part of that is because of camp, right?
Yeah. You guys worked with Carrie, right?
Yes. Tom did.
Okay.
Tom did. Yeah.
Okay.
Carrie was she got a teaching job at Wheelock, which is a second and third grade school at the time. Tom had been at Wheelock for a long time. It used to be K-6 or 1 through 6.
Okay.
And she got a second grade teaching job, and then she was third grade, I think. Yeah, then she was third grade. And so Tom met her. She would walk her kids down to the gym.
Nice.
And so I remember him coming home saying, there's this new teacher at our school. She's so sharp. She's really quick. I think Sam would really like her. And meanwhile, he's saying the same thing to Sam,
Yeah.
And one day he said something to her, and he'd said something to Sam, and she's like, yeah, here's my number. He can call me. And so Sam called her one day. We were at a Memorial Day thing, and the rest is history.
She and Sam together are perfect, but and she on her own, I would imagine, would have been heavily recruited just to work at camp anyway.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tom would have. I'm sure if he hadn't said, I think she'd be great for Sam, he would have said she'd be great at camp.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And he might have even said that. I don't recall it, but I'm sure, I wouldn't be surprised, because you're always looking for adults at camp,
Right.
as
Yeah.
well. TGs, not just students. My perspective of Tom is so different from all of your perspectives of Tom.
Right.
And I eventually had the perspective of employee at the very end, the very last year, for the first time. So I think we talked about, what it was like for me working at camp, but we didn't talk about, that dynamic at all, which I just think was so interesting. We'd always worked together at school.
Right.
So being partners in work was not anything unusual or new for us, but he has so much integrity about his work. Like, he approached camp as if it was the most important job in the world. Like, there's no job in the history of the world that was ever more important than program director.
Sure.
To Tom Cowell,
Yeah.
And, this is someone who taught an entire career and loved it, and was a coach in 2 varsity sports and had a lot of success and loved it, and was an athletic director for 12 years, 13 years, something like that, and loved it. He did a lot of things and did them really, really well. Not perfect any more than anybody else,
Sure.
but there was no job that he did that was more important than this. And he threw his whole self into every little decision. And some of those decisions came really quickly, like making the schedule. like not the original schedule. That took weeks, but
right.
The daily schedule, right? Like what to do for the daily schedule. And sometimes he just would sit down and the ideas would just roll. And it would be time for camp to start and he'd already have everything out and he'd be ahead of schedule. And then of course there's days, that just like writing, right? It's like the ideas just don't come as easily and you go have a conversation with someone and boom, it ignites something and it's there.
Right.
But I think that was the thing that I really respected so much about him is that he threw his whole self into it. This was not just a summer job any more than for you. It was just a summer job. It was your summer job while you were in school. It was just a summer job. But when you were there and everything was ready, right? You show up the first day and all the tables are in place and the program's ready and the packets are done and, the counselors show up and, it's been weeks and weeks of preparation, never mind the hiring and all that. So it really went year round, not full time year round, but he loved every aspect of it.
What's kind of like the cycle of the year? Like when does it really start to kick in that like you can see Tom like starting to shift the focus?
Well, he also was retired for many years from school and continued to run camp. So that was his full-time job then.
Awesome.
so
that
started a lot earlier. That's the dream, right?
The dream.
So he didn't do it full-time, but it was his only job. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So once he retired, he started a lot sooner because he was in school until June. And so he was just, like Sam is just about wrapping up hiring now. And this is pretty typical, it varies. Sometimes it's a little earlier.
Sure.
Sometimes you have that opening, late. But what would basically happen in the cycle is you'd have day 30. And then the next day he would go in and spend like half a day cleaning things up, organizing things, getting things put away, because you can't do it that day. Yeah. And you can't do it in preparation for that day. It's not like you can spend the last 3 days, closing down camp before camp. It's all ramping up.
Yeah.
And that was always a nice time for him, being in the office and people stopping in and, reflecting, and it's the day after. And a few counselors would be around cleaning up their areas that they didn't finish, waiting to get their paycheck, something like that. And then we would usually like have a vacation for a few days, and kind of put it aside.
Yeah.
And then because he never dealt with registration, that was all the, Gail and the Rice side. It would really be like March that it would really ramp up, because college kids are coming home for spring break, and they're starting to think about their summer plans. He might say, all year round, we're talking about ideas and things, but in terms of the actual work of preparing for camp, I'd say March, April.
Okay.
And, sometimes here it is late May and he's just finishing this year, Sam, but that was always very exciting. I mean, that's the most exciting thing, is hiring your staff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because those are the people that are the magic. So
yeah,
that's way more fun than making packets.
Sure. I suppose. Yeah. So he shared with us this summer a little bit about like what his interview process would be like, because he had a specific idea of the type of person he wanted at camp, and that has reflected also in the culture. Do you ever remember him kind of coming home from an interview being like we got one, like this is
oh yeah,
would he get like excited about that, or
super excited?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, super excited. And I can't bring up names, but they're probably it was probably Dave,
Sure.
But yes, absolutely. He would say, in my head, I hired this person as soon as they open their mouth,
That's great. Yeah.
But he had to make sure that like they didn't have a felony or anything like that. But
sure, the details, as we call them. Yeah.
The deets.
Oh man.
He'd be very excited. And that in our work, I mean, hiring new teachers is the most important job we have, right? Is hiring good people. And it's the same at camp. Tom is very, very creative minded.
Yeah.
And he'll hear, all he needs is a spark. See something. Something. He'll see a person dressed in weird clothing walking down the street. He'll go, that's our theme.
Yeah.
No, that's a theme idea,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you would do that now too, right? I mean, if you were in that role, you would be able to do the same thing because your mind is so easily. So I think there isn't one pattern for that. I think he'd have a lot of main ideas, and then he'd go in that couple weeks before camp, and that's when he would start to go in. As soon as school got out, he was in every day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that's where any holes would get filled, like any themes or big ideas.
Yeah.
The carnival at that time, anything that had gaps would get filled in then.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it all changes as the summer goes on and things happen at camp, and there becomes a culture around some song or some
Yep. Yeah, of course.
penalty or some event or something, and then things just change. But
yeah, one of the things that always was like noticeable that I can fully appreciate now, he was always changing it up. And in the moment, we were, so protective of the place. We're like, no, this isn't the way it used to be, or we've never done this before.
Right.
But he always came in and was like, hey, we're going to try this thing this year. And, we would do it because he was our boss and we trusted him. Right. We're like, all right, well, like, if you believe it. And then like, that's how some of these like amazing things that became their new traditions happened. But like, it was always him. I mean, given it's his role, but who would come in and be like, no, like, we're going to try something new every year. And even though camp feels the same every year, there's a little piece that was a little bit different that kind of helped it just to like grow and grow and grow. And I think that like, that's one of the things that just, there are so many things to appreciate about him in that role that like you can dissect it down to like a molecular level and be like, oh, it's like everything was planned. And like
that's what I'm saying. Everything was done with specific intent, like to keep you fresh. It was all designed to keep you fresh because it's so easy to settle into a comfort space, a comfortable space. And as soon as the counselors get comfortable, it's like, get your assistants doing stuff, CIT, can you go get this? Can you go get me a coffee? Can you go get me this or that? And then pretty soon you lose the vibrancy of what makes camp special. And so he knew that.
Yeah.
So he knew that he had to keep things fresh for you guys.
Yeah.
In order for all of you. And of course it keeps him fresh too. I mean, it's not like it's not for him, right?
Right.
But new things, new staff, new ideas create excitement. And and when they work, it's great. And when they don't, you move on.
Right. Or they don't work and that becomes a thing itself. Which like does the same thing. Yeah. Right. It's like it's like a mad
like the blindfolded football. I don't know if you ever saw that. Did you see that one?
No.
I don't know if Sam's doing that, but if he is, I'm sure it's been tweaked so that it's better. But so there's a blindfolded quarterback with a receiver. Somebody, the blindfolded quarterback says, hey, the receiver takes off and they're going, hey, and the quarterback throws the ball and they try to catch it. And it's like nowhere even close. I mean, there's no possibility of that ever connecting.
Right.
That was one that like he tried it, he tweaked it, and whether it's going on, it might be the best thing they do now. I don't think so, but but it would have required a few little tweaks, maybe like a limit of 10 yards downfield or something like that.
For example, I remember I was talking to Cat Nutting, and it was after my time. They did like a horse race counselor competition, and it was they might still do it now.
The knee pads.
And he was just like so dedicated to it. And like, the kids had like their knees were all scraped up and he's like, next year we're going to tweak it. And like being devoted to the idea became a thing where, and it just like, so it almost didn't, whether it works as intended or not is moot. Like it works because it's something to talk about one way or the other.
There were so many. Now, first of all, I'm sure there's tons of stuff that counselors did that he didn't know about, that we didn't know about. I mean, that.
I think that's probably right. Yeah.
But there were so many things that people didn't know that we knew about.
Yeah.
And that we never let on that we knew about.
Oh,
and to this day have never said that we know about some of the things. So it was really, it was fun for us to hear you guys talking openly about the trips to the island.
Yeah.
But then there were also, some regular, I'll call them counselor gatherings that went on.
Sure. Yeah.
And really fun times together that it was kind of like a secret that we knew the secret but didn't tell the secret.
I think there are
So
probably some people listening, scratching their heads right now, wondering what the Cowells might know about them in the
yeah,
moment.
and you know what? Everyone, it's all with love.
Yeah.
All with love.
Yeah.
All in the spirit of a good time.
Absolutely.
But the fun of it for us was knowing and smiling, and sometimes things would come as a result, but not be spoken about directly. And I don't know if I can come up with one example, but like something that he knew about that happened, and he would create a situation and use that information without telling anyone to do something the next day, or something like that. So, and the fun for him was in not disclosing it, that he knew. So, it's kind of a mad way of.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I think you have a lot of people scratching their heads right now.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
I think
nothing anyone has to worry about. Nothing anyone has to worry about.
No,
just
I think
fun times.
Probably thinking along the lines of like at morning flag being like, hey, we're going to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes this morning. Yes. Here are a couple of counselors. We've decided to run it. Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. Sure. You're right on track.
That tracks. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's, I think that's, I think we probably all maybe knew or wouldn't be upset, right? If you guys knew.
Right.
But that is, hey, it's good to hear we're all on the same page.
We're all on the same page, and it's all in the spirit of good fun. And, we had 4 kids that went through as counselors. So,
Sure.
And they were not the ways that we found out, by the way.
No, I fully believe that.
That is 100% true. That was a lot of fun for us.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to the, like, we're a family, right? We're a camp family. And I kind of think that's great.
I went to Springfield College, and we have a Stayuka spring weekend. It's a big spring party weekend, basically.
Okay, sure.
And there's all sorts of very active things that we did, and one of them was the oatmeal pass. So I suggested that to Tom, and he thought that sounded like fun. So my job was to make the oatmeal. And I think this from hearing the podcast, we actually cooked the oatmeal at home.
Yeah.
I would he'd bring the big pots home the day before. I would cook it all up, stick it in my car, or he'd come home and get it and carry it over there. You have to have 2 people carrying the pot because it was so hot.
Oh, right. Yeah.
From having cooked oatmeal in this huge lobster pot on the stove. Yeah. Just buckets of the oatmeal. And it was quite a few years, more than I'd like to admit, before we realized you could just stick a hose in a bucket and you have oatmeal.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So that definitely made its mark, I think, at camp, and was a good one.
Yeah. It's kind of gone, because my understanding is it went away for a number of years, and they brought it back this year with the 50th, but it's kind of developed its own, like, oh, do you know what oatmeal is, or did you go did you do it, which I think is really great. It's like part of the canon.
One of the things that I love about the camp language is how people refer to things as like, oh, we're doing oatmeal, we're doing whatever the thing is they're doing. It's like, it's a verb.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't really need to say anything else. People just they know, and they're excited. Just whatever.
Like at school, at college, no one said that. Oh, we're doing oatmeal. That wasn't a thing. Like we're gonna do the oatmeal pass. Like that's how you say it. But at camp, it took on a life of its own. And, that was really wonderful.
Well, you're right, though. It is part of the camp language, because the way that you interact with people from camp, and particularly during camp, is it's like it's its own dialect, right? Like you could piece it together, but if you don't go there, you don't know any of the antecedents. Like you're just all right, I don't know what's happening.
Right.
What was it like that first summer totally away from camp?
It was definitely different. Mm-hmm. Gail wanted Tom on site for at least the first 2 sessions. And honestly, he knew that Sam didn't need us there.
Yeah.
That Sam was ready.
Yeah.
But he stayed for the first week
Mm-hmm.
and was there full time for the first week with Sam, just supporting Sam. Sam ran the show. In fact, that was when Tom was able to, I think the morning of the first session, was able to like turn the rein. He probably said, good morning, FCDC, and said, here's your new program director, and introduced Sam that way. I'm pretty sure that's how we did it.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that was powerful, to use John's word. That was amazing, and
sure.
A real proud moment for us.
Yeah.
Because it was a very sad moment when the kids were all hugging Tom on his last year, when nobody knew he was leaving.
Yeah.
And he knew, these are my last hugs. These are my not last hugs, but you know what I mean? These are my last campers in this moment. And it would have been different if other people knew, but the fact that nobody else knew, he just turned and looked at me after that last, bell.
Yeah.
And we were like,
end of an era. Yeah.
Yeah, end of an era.
Of all of the takeaways of like, we can all like stipulate camp is wonderful, full stop. But like, what do you think like the best thing or things that it gives either the campers or the counselors or the community at large? Like, what's the best thing about it, I guess? And that could go in any direction. It's
actually pretty easy for me to answer. That's not something I have to think too hard about, because it's so big.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same for counselors as it is for kids. It's just because of your age, it affects you differently. But the idea that, everyone is accepted, that you can be your true self, that you can be goofy, that you're not going to be insulted. At school, the number of times kids will just, rag on each other. And as soon as I say like, hey, that's not nice. Oh, I'm just kidding. He's my friend, as if like he's my friend, so I can rag on him, or whatever.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen at camp, and it makes it so special. And so it's a feeling that you have when you're there, that you're secure, that you're safe, that you're wanted, accepted, so even for the adults, you don't have to think about like, what am I going to wear to camp, from the perspective of like, so that I look good. It's like, what am I going to wear to camp so I can be my true self? What am I going to wear that's crazy? What am I going to wear that's fun and different that I never get to wear anywhere else?
Right.
So I didn't get to shower this morning. No big deal. Ponytail, ball cap, day at camp. It's you. It's not your polished, perfect self.
Yeah, that's kind of the essence, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think it one thing I'm kind of figuring out is like, I don't have to get so caught up in like defining it, like having a dictionary definition of what it is, because it is these kind of like the essence of it, like the magic of it.
The magic,
and all of the things, all of the details, all the examples that everyone gives, like that's it. Like there's no way to boil it down. Like there's just
I remember the first time I noticed that. I was sitting in the back at Sing. I think all the big moments happen probably at Sing, because where else do you sing out loud in front of other people when you're a kid, other than like in music class or chorus, unless that's a thing that you're doing by choice.
Right.
And I remember Jesse was one of the older tribes, and I don't remember which one at the time, and he was sitting in the back, and he was very quiet at home, but it was Sing, and all the kids in his tribe, including him, were all singing. They were singing along, and they were like, 13, 14, 13 years old. And I'm like, look at all these kids, because I'm in the back, right? So you're seeing all the kids in the back.
Yeah.
No surprise that the kids up front are singing, because that's a thing that little kids do, but you don't see 13-year-old boys sitting around singing along to, goofy stuff.
Silly songs.
And it was silly songs. And it was in that moment that I realized that it's something special that it brings out of you, that the rest of the world that you go through, you move through the world, it doesn't bring that out in you.